We are so outnumbered, there's only one thing to do. We must attack.
I shall run wild considerably for the first 6 months or a year, but I have utterly no confidence for the second or third year.
Section 1. The Flying Antiques. November 11th, 1940. 20:35 hours. Ionian Sea. The flight deck of HMS Illustrious is a scene of organized chaos, a sliver of vibrating steel against an ocean of black ink. The wind is cold, smelling of salt and aviation fuel. Lieutenant Commander Kenneth "Hooch" Williamson, adjusting his leather helmet, looks at his aircraft and feels the familiar mix of affection and absurdity. His machine is a fairy swordfish. To call it obsolete is a kindness. It is a relic. A biplane in the age of the monoplane. Its fuselage is fabric stretched over a metal frame, held together with a spider's web of bracing wires. The crew, pilot, observer, and telegraphist, are crammed into open, windswept cockpits. Its top speed, with a 1,610-pound torpedo slung underneath, is a pathetic 130 miles per hour. Downhill. The crews call it the string bag, because, like a string shopping bag, it can carry anything. But tonight, it looks less like a weapon of war and more like a museum piece, silhouetted against the dark, churning sea. Williamson's target is 170 miles away. It is not some merchant convoy. It is the fortress of Taranto. This is the main fleet anchorage of Benito Mussolini's Regia Marina, the Italian Royal Navy. It is one of the most heavily defended ports in the world. The intelligence, confirmed by daring high-altitude photo reconnaissance flights from Malta, is terrifying. The inner harbor, the Mar Piccolo, and the outer harbor, the Mar Grande, are packed with the pride of the Italian fleet. 6 battleships, including 2 brand-new Littorio-class dreadnoughts, 7 heavy cruisers, and dozens of destroyers. They are protected by 21 batteries of heavy anti-aircraft guns, hundreds of 20mm and 37mm rapid-fire cannons, 22 massive searchlights, and, critically, a curtain of anti-torpedo nets guarding the main anchorages and barrage balloons floating overhead, their steel cables designed to rip the wings off any low-flying attacker. And into this, Admiral Andrew Cunningham is sending 21 biplanes. It's not just a mission. It's an insult. It's madness. First wave, man your aircraft. The shout is barely audible over the wind and the first cough of a Bristol Pegasus engine. Williamson and his observer, Lieutenant Norman Blood Scarf, climb into their cockpits. The engine catches, settling into its low, reliable, agricultural thrum-thrum-thrum. It sounds less like a warplane and more like a tractor. One by one, the 12 string bags of the first wave rumble down the deck, their fabric wings flexing, and lift ponderously into the black sky. They are slow. They are fragile. And they are heading for the lair of the Italian fleet, armed with a torpedo, a few flares, and an audacious, impossible plan. Section 2. The Impossible Approach. Taranto, 22:50 hours. On the armored bridge of the battleship Conte di Cavour, Capitano di Vascello, Captain Antonio Latorre, sips a small cup of black, bitter coffee. The port is quiet. His ship, a 29,000-ton dreadnought, rests at its mooring buoy in the Mar Grande, the outer harbor, a symbol of fascist power. Alongside him are the pride of the fleet, Giulio Cesare, Andrea Doria, and the 2 new jewels, the Littorio and Vittorio Veneto, anchored just across the way in the Mar Piccolo. Admiral Inigo Campione, the fleet commander, is secure in the knowledge that Taranto is a fortress. The British fleet, he knows, is somewhere in the eastern Mediterranean, centered on its carrier, Illustrious. But they are too far away for their modern, fast Skua or Fulmar fighters to reach. And as for torpedoes, his admirals have assured him it is a technical impossibility. The Mar Grande is only 12 to 15 meters deep. Any aerial torpedo dropped from a conventional height and speed would plunge straight into the mud and detonate uselessly. The British know this. His anti-torpedo nets, though incomplete, guard the most likely approaches. His barrage balloons, though recently depleted by bad weather, still guard the inner harbor. This anchorage is safe. The air raid siren begins its mournful, rising wail. Sailors on deck barely look up. Annoyance, not fear. It is the third time this week. British high-altitude Wellington bombers from Malta, flying nuisance raids, dropping a few bombs aimlessly into the city. The port's powerful searchlights, 22 of them, spring to life, their white beams stabbing the high clouds. The 21 heavy flak batteries on the shore begin to thump, 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 firing blindly at the unseen, high-altitude pest. But then, a new sound. A lookout on the Cavour cocks his head. His report to the bridge is confused. "Sir, I hear aircraft, but they are low, and they sound strange. It's not the high-pitched, angry whine of a Merlin engine. It's a low, stuttering drone. Thrum, thrum, thrum. It sounds impossibly slow. At 22:58, the first swordfish, flown by Lieutenant L.A. Bill Sclater, banks over the city. He is not carrying a torpedo. His mission is to light the stage. He and his observer begin dropping flares, one after another, over the Mar Grande. The night is ripped apart. The flares ignite, not at 20,000 feet, but at 1,500. They hang in the air, bathing the harbor in a brilliant, cold, magnesium white light. On the bridge of the Cavour, Captain Latorre's coffee cup shatters on the steel deck. He stares in utter disbelief. Caught in the glare, like moths in a bottle, are airplanes. But not bombers. They are biplanes. Fabric wings, wire rigging, open cockpits. They look like something from the last war. "What in God's name?" an officer whispers. "They are biplani?" It is a moment of pure, stunning incomprehension. It is an insult. The Royal Navy, in a desperate, pathetic gesture, has sent flying antiques to their doom. The anti-aircraft gunners are the first to react. Their guns are sighted for fast-moving monoplanes at high altitude. Now, they must depress their barrels, trying to track these slow-moving things that are flitting just above the water like giant bats. The searchlights drop their beams, hunting, catching one of the string bags in their blue-white glare. "Fire! Fire at everything!" The order is screamed across the fleet. In that instant, the night erupts. A wall of multicolored tracers, red, green, and white, fills the sky, all converging on the handful of slow-moving targets. And down in the glare, his aircraft shuddering from the flak, Lieutenant Commander Williamson lines up his shot. He is just 30 feet above the water, aiming his string bag directly at the massive silhouette of the Conte de Cavour. Section 3. The Mud Runners. For the Italian gunners, it is a turkey shoot, a guaranteed kill. The sky is so thick with flak that it seems impossible for a fabric-winged biplane to survive for more than a second. But the swordfish is a difficult target for reasons no one expected. It is too slow. The anti-aircraft predictors, calibrated for modern 300-mile-per-hour bombers, cannot track them. Gunners firing manually are leading the targets too far, their streams of tracers passing harmlessly in front of the crawling biplanes. The string bags just soak up the punishment, their fabric wings ripping, their wires snapping, but their simple, robust frames and low-stress engines keep them in the air. In his cockpit, Lieutenant Commander Williamson is flying into a solid wall of fire. Tracers are zipping past his head like angry, colored hornets. He can feel the thump, thump, thump of 20mm shells tearing through his fuselage. His observer, Blood Scarf, taps him on the shoulder, pointing, confirming the target. Williamson ignores the fire. He is focused on two things: his airspeed and his altitude. He drops lower, 30 feet. The spray from the harbor water is misting his goggles. This is the secret, the impossible trick. The Italians were right. A standard torpedo, dropped from a standard height, would dive into the mud. But the British pilots of Illustrious had spent weeks practicing a suicidal technique. They would fly suicidally low, at a precise, agonizingly slow speed, and release their torpedoes from an altitude of just 30 to 40 feet. It's a maneuver that requires a fanatical, almost inhuman level of calm. "Now!" Scarf yells. Williamson pulls the release. He feels the 1,600-pound tin fish drop away. The swordfish, suddenly lightened, lurches upward. Williamson shoves the stick forward, banking so hard the wires on his wings scream in protest, dragging his aircraft away from the Cavour's guns. The torpedo, modified with a simple wooden drum on its nose to break its dive, hits the water with a splash. It doesn't dive. It runs, hot, straight, and true, for 400 yards. A sailor on the Cavour's deck sees the white, bubbling wake. He screams. The torpedo strikes the Conte de Cavour on its port side, directly below the main B turret. The explosion is not a crack. It is a deep, deafening whump that feels like the entire harbor has been punched from below. A column of water, black oil, and steel debris erupts 300 feet into the air, dwarfing the battleship's masts. On the bridge, Captain Latore is thrown to the deck. The 29,000-ton dreadnought shudders, then lurches, settling immediately to port. A 27-foot hole has been torn in her hull. Water is not seeping in. It is roaring in. The Italian admirals, watching from the shore, are stunned into silence. Their fortress is breached. Their battleship is sinking. And it was done by a biplane. Before they can even comprehend it, another string bag, piloted by Lieutenant Donald G.G. Bailey, thunders over the Mar Grande, ignoring the flak, and plants a second torpedo into the Cavour's stern. Simultaneously, the other half of the first wave, led by Lieutenant Commander J.W. Stake Hale, makes a daring run on the inner Mar Piccolo harbor, flying over the city, dodging balloon cables. They drop their torpedoes. 2 more massive explosions echo across the water. One torpedo slams into the brand new 45,000-ton Littorio, blowing a 32-foot hole in her bow. Another strikes the battleship Caio Duilio, ripping a gash in her starboard side. In less than 15 minutes, the obsolete antiques have gutted the core of the Italian battle fleet. As the first wave limps for home, 2 of their number shot down, the harbor is a vision of hell. Ships listing, sirens wailing, oil fires spreading across the water, and thousands of Italian sailors scrambling to save their sinking dreadnoughts. Section 4. The Reckoning at dawn. 2350 hours. The 9 swordfish of the second wave are already airborne, droning into the night, 90 minutes behind the first. Their crews, led by Lieutenant Commander JSWS Jimmy Robertson, are flying toward a target they know is no longer sleeping. They are heading into a hornet's nest that has been thoroughly kicked. As they approach the Italian coast, they can see the glow from 60 miles away. It is the city of Taranto, lit up not only by its own searchlights, but by the burning oil fires in its harbor. When they arrive over the Mar Grande, the scene is one of pandemonium. The sky is a chaotic web of searchlights, sweeping wildly. The flak is no longer measured or aimed. It is a solid, impenetrable curtain of explosions, fired by panicked gunners at anything that moved. "My God," Robertson's observer mutters, looking down at the blazing harbor. Hooch and his boys certainly stirred them up. There is no more surprise. This is a brute force attack. Robertson's voice is calm over the radio. "Target, Littorio. Repeat, Littorio. Bombing flight. Targets of opportunity. Go." The biplanes split up, diving into the wall of steel. One swordfish, piloted by Lieutenant GWLA Bailey, is instantly caught in the intersection of 3 searchlights, painted in a glare so bright he is completely blind. Tracers converge on him from every direction. His aircraft is ripped to shreds and explodes, vanishing in a flash of fuel and fabric. But the others press on. Robertson, jinking and weaving, his string bag shuddering, dives toward the Mar Piccolo. He sees the massive dark shape of the Littorio, already listing to starboard, its bow down. He drops his torpedo. It runs true, striking the battleship in the stern. A third, devastating explosion rips through the dreadnought's hull. Another pilot, his torpedo hung up, circles and makes a second, suicidal pass, dropping his tin fish toward the Caio Duilio.
A 4th battleship is hit.
The remaining aircraft, armed with bombs, sweep low over the inner harbor, dropping their payloads on cruisers and the seaplane base, shattering hangars and setting more fires, adding a final, bloody exclamation point to the night's work. By 0130, the last string bag has turned for home, leaving behind a scene of absolute devastation. Dawn, November 12, 1940. As the first gray light of morning spills over the city, Admiral Inigo Campioni stands with his staff, looking at his fleet. The sight is not a defeat, it is a sacrilege. The Conte di Cavour, his 29,000-ton flagship, is gone. It has sunk in the shallow water, its decks awash, its masts and turrets sticking out of the oil-covered sea at a drunken angle. The Caio Duilio is resting on the bottom, its bow submerged. The Littorio, Italy's new super battleship, the symbol of Mussolini's power, is crippled, down by the head, resting on the mud with 3 torpedo holes in its hull. 3 battleships, half of Italy's capital ship strength, neutralized in a single night. The cost to the British? 2. Obsolete biplanes. The Italian admirals were not just defeated, they were humiliated, they were stunned. Their entire doctrine of naval warfare, built around the invincibility of the battleship in its fortress anchorage, had been proven a lie. The British, with a weapon that belonged in a museum, had reached in and torn the heart out of the Regia Marina. The balance of power in the Mediterranean had been shattered. But the shockwave of Taranto went further. Halfway around the world, in Tokyo, naval attachés of the Imperial Japanese Navy read the reports with clinical, surgical interest. They noted the shallow harbor. They noted the impossible torpedo run. And they began to draw very specific, very detailed plans for an American harbor in the Pacific, called Pearl.